Hey everybody, it's your friend Adam. I'm here with Wandering Wojak, and we're gonna watch some videos. I've been following the Kyle Rittenhouse case very closely. I'm sure most of you have. Have you been watching the case, Wojak?
I have been following parts of it, yeah. The live stream's a bit less though, because every time I start, I just start losing my temper, really.
Oh yeah. You can do that. I s- I I got to admit I've been skipping around as well. So people in the chat were just saying they were arguing over a photo that the state had enlarged and did some I guess algorithmic interpolation on. So they were trying to get it thrown out. And it's the photo of Kyle Rittenhouse supposedly lifting his gun up and pointing it at, I don't know if it's Rosenbaum or Zeminski, but Zeminski was armed, and like 15 seconds later, after Rosenbaum starts chasing him, he lifts up the gun and points it at him again. So I mean, I don't know what big difference it makes.
I don't understand it at all. Originally, I had believed, based on what people were sharing when the case first started, when the shooting
Mhm.
first happened. I was on a Discord at the time, and people were sharing news links, and I was like, well, it seems as though, just based on this, that he would be guilty, but I made a couple of mistakes there. One, I did not look up Wisconsin state law. Wisconsin
Mhm.
state law is very different from other areas like DC,
Really?
California, and so it's way more permissive. And the way
Mhm.
the law is written, as I believe
Well,
you.
how would he be guilty if the guy was trying to take his gun, even if he was someplace like California?
Well, this is the thing. The first reports on this did
Mhm.
not depict things remotely accurately. This
Oh,
was
okay. It was the
before I
reporting,
start.
not
Yeah,
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 you didn't see the videos. Yeah.
yeah. No,
Okay.
once I saw the video and that he was being chased by a mob, it was like that. It would be really difficult in most states to depict that as anything but self-defense.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
I'm not a
Being
lawyer, of
being
course,
being
but it.
chased by a mob. I just saw a thing on, I can't remember. I think it's Newsmax, which is like the super right wing channel. So obviously, all the people on the left are going to dismiss it. But the guy said why Kyle Rittenhouse took the stand, and and this is obviously hearsay because evidently he's close to someone in the Kyle Rittenhouse family, but they were saying he took the stand because he wanted to dispel all the lies that have been told about him, which I can totally relate to. And I mean, it just screams, I'm innocent. Like, I'm not afraid of nothing. Why should I not take the stand?
Well, I'm sure other attorneys can tell you about this. There are plenty of people who do that feeling the same way that can either save you or completely tank the case. You've no way to know how that's. I've heard both from defense attorneys before. It's kind of a coin toss. You never know what's going to happen.
No, it's risky. It's totally risky, but I mean, it can't be any more risky than running from a murderous mob right down the middle of the street.
Yeah, he seems. Yeah, well,
Seems like he's willing to take a risk. J Mac for $100 says, "Hey Adam, I want to formally and publicly apologize to you for comparing you to Binger. Had I had I'd known what kind of monster he truly was, I would have never made such disparaging remarks against you. Forgive me, senpai." Well,
the
of course
simping.
you're forgiven. There's no need to apologize for that, obviously. And I almost tweeted out a picture because I have this picture of me with an AR with super long hair, like David Koresh style. And I almost tweeted out a picture of Binger and that picture and said, "Look, people have been comparing me to Binger, and I just don't see the resemblance here." But
I'll be
I
honest.
held off on doing it.
When I saw the prosecutor, I can. You two almost look like you are brothers. Like the resemblance is a bit uncanny. He's older than you, though, I believe.
I'm not certain. I mean, I'm probably older than him, to be honest with you. I don't know
Hmm.
how old's old Binger. But yes, people have been comparing me to him. Everyone's
Yeah.
been saying, yeah. So yeah, it is what it is.
Well, you just kind of roll with it, have fun with
You,
it.
you can't fight the internet, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Doberman the Lucifer for 10 Canadian says, "I don't apologize for comparing you to Binger. I know you have a good sense of humor." That's exactly right. Yeah. No need to apologize, obviously.
Well, that's important to have, especially these days. People just take jokes seriously and try to ruin your life for them. It's crazy.
Maybe I'll tweet it. Maybe I'll tweet that out. I did save it. Maybe I'll tweet it out once we get a verdict. It's a little too early to be celebrating. I feel like I'm not sure that I want to be
Well,
joking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case at this
yeah,
point in time.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea to be hesitant there, but I want to speak to kind of this general sentiment as
Mhm.
well that people. I don't know how much of a joke it is, but some people have argued seriously with me that people don't or can't change their minds. And I want to make that's why I led off by saying I was initially misled by the media, and that is a genuine case. Unfortunately, that
Mhm.
retweet I'm not sure is genuine, but in my case, misunderstandings and lying by omission, which I
What are you talking about? Let's let the audience in. Are you talking about the tweet that I retweeted?
oh yes, the
Okay.
one that you retweeted from that person, I'm not sure if that's genuine because the person's entire tweet timeline seems to be largely rather far right wing takes anyway. And in my experience, those people never even look at CNN except to just call it lies. So just by inference, I'm skeptical considering the only time that person mentioned Kyle Rittenhouse was to say she had changed her mind on it. Uh, of course, you could say the same thing about me, but I don't also post
So
in favor of.
let's give some backstory
Yeah,
here. So I retweeted this tweet here because this is kind of interesting. So hear me roar. Kyle Rittenhouse, she tweets, Kyle Rittenhouse, I am sorry I unfairly judged you and thought you were a racist. Full disclosure, watching part of the trial watching parts of the trial were both humbling and horrifying. When this happened months ago, I was a sheep. I watched CNN and I thought, and I bought they were selling. It's
yeah.
so difficult for me as someone who's not a good reader and has to read word by word when people make typos. But anyway, so and I retweeted some humanity here. Thank you. And I did actually look at her timeline and I saw some anti-vax stuff in her timeline. I didn't look close enough to see if it was anti-vax on the left or the right because I mean there's just as many anti-vaxxers on the
Yeah,
left as the right as far as I'm concerned.
yeah, and that's fair.
And maybe she's clout chasing, but the interesting thing that came up because some people did come into my mentions and say, you know, this chick is clout chasing. Obviously, this is an untrue story, but it was getting a lot of traction. And I thought, well, are all these 1,300 and 13,000 people who like the tweet? Are they all in a similar situation? Or are they all liars too?
Well, no, the main concern I have with something like that, I'm a bit hesitant to. I'm not directly saying that she's lying.
Mhm.
I'm saying that I'm a bit skeptical, and my concern is that people who say bought the entire thing hook, line, and sinker would see that and not only be skeptical but double down because they would perceive it as an outgroup sort of lie. Is how they. I'm almost certain they will perceive it that
You're
way. Is
not
my
really
concern.
answering the question though. These 13,000 people are definitely there's some sincere people in there, right?
In
Like
13,000, almost certainly.
even if let's take it completely as 100% bad faith. This woman's a clout chaser. All she cares about is likes.
Well, I
She
agree with the
doesn't
idea.
she
Yeah.
has no she could care less about Kyle Rittenhouse. Actually, she hates Kyle Rittenhouse and wants to see him burn. Okay? She still tweets this out and a substantial number of people are liking it and sharing it. Are all these people her useful idiots or they are useful idiots?
Well, that's really not. That isn't something that you could determine from that. All I can do there is compare it to other examples, say with the Trump situation, either for or against Russian collusion, or say the Trump situation with respect to what was that conspiracy theory that he would resume office and there was something in the works where he would remain president? Like,
I'm confused by why you're bringing that up, but
well, I'm bringing that up due to you can't simply look at the size or quantity of likes or retweets and social media penetration to gauge actual sentiment or opinion. In some cases, it's ambiguous that way. Now, as respect to your specific question is, are they all? Well, no, I absolutely wouldn't say they are all going to be on one side or the other. I'm pretty sure some people will find that persuasive. My concern is reactants if they later, if it gets shared around in their other circles that person might be dishonest. The reactants there might cause them to swing the other way is my concern. So there's a long-term thing there. Now, again, I'm not sure if this person is not honestly representing their opinion change or not, but I'm sure you can understand.
They hate CNN here, but I mean, after being lied to for a year, I would. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Well, if you, I'm sure you've watched. Aiden has talked about reactants quite a lot too, and
sure, I know.
Perceived deception is one of those things I think that can definitely cause people to double down on either their current position or their prior position, sort of, especially from a perceived outgroup. And that would mainly be my concern with something like that. The best thing probably would be someone who they would perceive as their own side as well. So someone who does still follow or support CNN, but is critical of a particular set of journalists at CNN.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
I mean, she's retweeting Turning Points USA, but this is from November 10th. So we don't necessarily know when this story took place. But I mean, I'm not here. I don't know why I'm trying to dig into this. Is she the big?
Well, it was a broader point.
The question, the thing that is interesting to me is, does it really even matter if she's lying? If she can tweet out a sentiment that 14,000 people agree with?
Well, that is the question. Like I said, my concern with that would be a backlash effect if
she's found out to be lying.
Either that, but not even that. Like if the
the Young Turks were lying, and they're not even experiencing any kind of backlash effect.
Well, the backlash effect would be an opposition to attempts to persuade. So that would be considered, for example, an attempt to persuade someone to change their mind that Kyle is innocent. The backlash effect would be on discovering, say, from a further left circle who's going to definitively say this person must be lying, they are a liar. The backlash effect would then be to double down on Kyle being guilty. So, like I said, I'm not sure, but with ambiguous things like that, the problem with ambiguity is the further radicalized you are, the less tolerant you are of ambiguity. And while I can sit here and say, well, it's ambiguous, I understand the sentiment, and I agree with you that there are going to be people who agree with the sentiment, who have changed their minds, like I did originally. But how it's going to be taken by the people who probably most need to change their minds.
I don't know. I think she's sincere. I think you guys are just a little too jaded.
I just said I was skeptical.
I don't see anything that's. Well, I don't know if I want to dip into like the abortion stuff. Yeah, I think you guys are maybe a little too jaded, a little too quick to judge. So maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Well, to be absolutely clear, I didn't say she was lying. I simply said I was skeptical, and mostly I'm concerned that the people who will say she absolutely is lying can cause a kind of closing ranks backlash.
Well, they're going to say that even if she isn't lying.
Right.
Listen,
right.
They're talking. They're calling Kyle Rittenhouse a liar, and like I have some other videos from the Young Turks basically calling Kyle Rittenhouse a liar, and I was going to look at the Young Turks comment section because they're like, it's just insane what they're saying about Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the Young Turks comment section in a while.
So let's look at this Tucker Carlson. Where was I here? Come on.
In the meantime, tonight, the Kyle Rittenhouse.
I don't know that I shared the audio. Can you hear the audio?
Yes,
I think it shares the audio now by default, which is great because I never want to think about sharing the audio again. Why the hell? It should share it by default, right?
Yeah, that I've forgotten things like that before, and then 5 minutes later, the person's like, "Oh, you were playing a video?
House trial continued today in Wisconsin.
So let me set this up because there's not really a Sitch and Adam clip in this. The Young Turks did a video where they made Anna Kasparian made somewhat of a retraction concerning her Kyle Rittenhouse coverage over the last year. She admitted that she watched the Kyle Rittenhouse videos and thought that it was Kyle that was chasing Rosenbaum. She thought Kyle was Rosenbaum. And so this is like an insane take that pretty much has blown up all over the internet, but they hid it inside a Young Turks video that was titled something like "The Judge's Insane Racist Republican Rant," or I don't know. That wasn't the title of it, but that's similar to what it was. So I ended up clipping this out because I thought, no one's going to see this. This needs to be seen. It might help to see that the Young Turks are saying, hey, we got some of this story wrong. And, it's okay for you to change your mind too. So I went and clipped it out. I made sure that it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds so I could share it on Twitter and on YouTube. And I uploaded it, and a bunch of people shared it. I think Glenn Greenwald shared it. I think the Daily Wire did a write-up on it. And the clip actually ended up on Tucker Carlson. And my only regret, and I actually had considered doing this, was that I didn't change the Sitch and Adam logo to Adam and Sitch. Because it would have been so hilarious if it was on Tucker Carlson as Adam and Sitch.
We would have never heard the end of that. It just would have been you would have just heard "ree" from all the way where you live.
I know. But it's funny. I think Sitch tweeted it out. A bunch of people sent it to us. So it is a lot of fun. It's obviously, it's not really a clip from the Sitch and Adam show, but everybody thinks it is. And a lot of people I uploaded it to my channel. A lot of people are commenting on that video, and it's just infuriating because they're commenting as if it's on the Young Turks channel, as if the Young Turks did this stunning and brave thing. And even Tucker Carlson calls it a stunning and brave thing. I don't know if you can call it a stunning and brave thing when they hide it in another video and don't make any kind of, proper public retraction, and then are still in videos lying about Rittenhouse.
Interesting thing about that. And now I'm almost tempted to swap positions a little bit to what you were indicating earlier. Does it matter if that's true? Because no, hear me out.
I'm with you. I totally agree.
In this particular case, I don't necessarily see it as I don't see how it could end up in a backfire effect, because it might indicate to people who are on the radical left, oh, I can change my mind and they will let me.
Right.
That is important. That's very important to signal to people, is that you won't be punished for making mistakes.
So let's follow that train of thinking, because it is interesting, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it is the exact same thing as the tweet. I don't think praise from Tucker Carlson is going to play well with the Young Turks. I think it actually I think it actually hurts the Young Turks. It makes people less likely to come clean for their prior indiscretions about the Kyle Rittenhouse lies.
For them individually, yes, you are correct.
Nobody wants to be praised by Tucker Carlson.
For their viewers, though,
mm-hmm.
or for people who are sort of in that camp but not entirely, I think it has a beneficial effect on them. On
mm-hmm.
the Young Turks in particular, maybe not. And that's entirely different because of authenticity. So their own camp will perceive that as authentic because it is a direct quote of them correcting their own position, and they already will see their own camp as being reasonable and willing to admit mistakes, right? So it's a different and perceived authenticity.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Yeah. They're already giving their side the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, perspective taking is really hard, and you've got to kind of... I've been sitting there thinking about those kind of things for a while now, trying to figure out how best to engage people in a way that doesn't... I don't want to say triggered, but maybe that is the best word, where your hackles are up, right? You're defensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one of those important things is definitely admitting that you have made mistakes and allowing other people to have made mistakes without trying to throw them off a cliff.
Yeah, no, I don't. A-Team's all about forgiveness. I think you should be able to forgive.
And by implication, S-Team isn't. Ooh.
No, S-Team, they're grudgers. No, S-Team, I think S-Team is about forgiveness as well.
So you're saying, yeah.
It's a core principle of A-Team. I think, I'm not sure about S-Class.
So you're saying that S-Class doesn't have these.
I got to watch out about the so you're saying.
Yeah.
God, I hated that because you have to be able to restate people's positions in a debate without people going, oh, you restated their position, so you're doing a Kathy Newman. It's like, come on,
yeah.
Oh,
I've come across that just yesterday, in fact. Yeah.
Just Kathy Newmaning is restating someone's position completely incorrectly. It's basically straw manning. But if you're steel manning someone, and if you restate their position and they go on to say, yeah, that's my position, then it doesn't matter if you say, so you're saying before it doesn't matter.
Same thing goes for arguing about consequences of a position. Like if you say, here's an unintended consequence that follows from this argument. The problem is a lot of people immediately react saying that's a straw man. Well, no, because I'm not saying you said that. I'm saying it's a consequence of what you said. Those are two different things. Unfortunately, it's really hard to have that nuance.
Brain for $2 says, screw Kyle. You deranged me. Ultimately a miser. So I can't remember who it was. I think it was Utter Nonsense in the comments said, I'm not sure if giving Brain a wrench is a good idea. So I took away Brain's wrench. I didn't know. Let me know in the chat if I should return Brain. I don't like taking away people's wrenches, but I mean, Utter Nonsense. I mean, I trust Utter Nonsense. So I don't know. I went back and I looked at Brain's comments and stuff, and I was like, maybe Utter Nonsense was joking. I have no idea. So maybe Brain is fine for a wrench. I mean, Brain seems solid to me. What's going on, Utter Nonsense? Fill me in. Brain is already how fickle. Oh, Utter Nonsense. I didn't say it. I'm pretty sure it was you. Somebody said it. I'm pretty sure. I thought it was Utter Nonsense, but maybe not. That's so funny that Brain is back and he's okay. I'm giving Brain the wrench back.
Sometimes I swear I wonder if you're just some evil goddamn mastermind, the way you're playing your community against itself for fun at times.
I'm not.
It seems like you are sometimes.
Look at P Dog Knight. Now he's been around forever. I've watched his videos forever. Of course he gets a wrench. What's up? Of course P Dog Knight gets a wrench. I'm surprised he didn't have one. All right, let's play a little more Tucker. The intro here is pretty crazy. Does this help us? Listen, you've been following. I invited Wojak Wandering on because his responses in the academic agent comment sections are just legendary. And so I wanted to meet him. I wanted to invite him on because obviously he's definitely digging into like the stats and stuff in a way that I'm not prepared to dig into. But I'm curious, just since you were following a little bit of the academic agent back and forth, does being on Tucker Carlson help us or hurt us with that community?
With their community, I don't think it has much of an effect
Oh,
either
okay.
way. There isn't really an overlap because the way well, I don't know about Academic Agent in particular, but in broad strokes, the neo-reactionary community, they see these things as how they would put it is cucked. So anything
so
they support,
it's Cucker Carlson.
yeah, it usually is not going to help anyone to appear to be affiliated with them either.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, once you're a
That's interesting.
certain degree of outside any Overton window that's in any main society, that it acts like an entirely separate camp.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. I thought they would be like a little bit jealous, but I guess you're right. That's funny. I'm glad I mentioned it.
In a move that surprised lawyers everywhere, Rittenhouse took the stand in his own defense. That is unusual in criminal cases, and it's especially unusual in murder trials. And the reason is simple: the stakes are too high. One wrong answer in a cross-examination, and you could wind up spending life in prison. But this case was different. By the time he testified today, Kyle Rittenhouse had already won the case. At this point, there was no remaining doubt that Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense during the riots last summer in Kenosha. Every shot Rittenhouse fired was captured on videotape and from multiple angles. Every single witness who testified this week at the trial confirmed exactly what happened. And here are the facts of it. A convicted child rapist called Joseph Rosenbaum was released from a mental hospital and then went directly to join the mob that was burning downtown Kenosha. Once he got to the riot, Rosenbaum saw Kyle Rittenhouse and immediately threatened to kill him. Rosenbaum then chased Rittenhouse and tried to pull the gun from his hands. When he did that, Kyle Rittenhouse shot him. So Joseph Rosenbaum died as he had lived, trying to touch an unwilling minor.
Oh my God. Tucker.
Those jokes play really well with that bass in particular, but that's a spicy one.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I was like, Tucker, why are you showing our clip in this video? Tucker just like smack. Oh, by the way, you're defending a pedophile, you fucking weirdos.
Well, now your show is going to be branded as even farther to the far right because your clip was shown, it's a conspiracy. You are paid somehow by Fox News and such things. Those conspiracies happen on both sides, sadly.
We're used to people lying about us on the internet. It seems like that's all anyone does on the internet is lie about other people. It seems like that's what the internet was made for, right?
Well, sadly, it seems to be where a lot of the most dysfunctional people have to go because they can't go anywhere else. And so they're the people who are always most likely to make conspiracies. Unfortunately, now everyone can see the conspiracies that they're thinking about.
Here, we'll skip to where we come in at the very end here. So I'll just skip forward to this.
Defense. So reporters called Shepard's employer. Another reporter showed up at Shepard's house with a camera crew and then bragged about it.
All this stuff is completely disgusting. I can't believe the way they've targeted people who supported Kyle Rittenhouse. It's so evil. So evil.
That does bother me. And also, regarding, I think, yesterday, with what the prosecutor did, too, it's very rare you see a judge so angry that he stutters and completely forgets.
Oh, I know.
Even his own rulings. That was interesting to see. Oh, yeah.
ABC4 News investigator Jason Wynn went to Shepard's home to get his side of things.
Yeah, I remember when this happened. I was like, what a fucking dick. What a fucking dick. Fucking SJW reporter. Idiot. Fucking, these people are such useful idiots.
But those inside the home didn't want to talk. Yeah, wonder why. It is shameful and authoritarian, hurting the weak to appease the strong. That's the American media 2021. Having watched the trial, no honest person could fail to admit the obvious. The media were completely wrong about Kyle Rittenhouse. They slandered an innocent kid, but they're not admitting it. There is at least one exception, though, and we want to highlight that person tonight. Her name is Anna Kasparian. She's a lefty. She's on a show called The Young Turk. She hates this show, and most of the time we disagree with her. But on the question of this trial...
They picked a picture of Anna that they knew she would love. They're like, let's just cater to her ego.
Anna Kasparian was bravely honest, and good for her. Watch this.
So look, these details matter
See
because
right here, look. You can see I watermarked it. I got that from Stephen Michael Davis, because Stephen Michael Davis would share clips and then he'd get pissed that they would go everywhere, and he knew he was responsible for it. So I was like, I want to know where this clip ends up.
That is a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
It shows you where your penetration is, too, when it comes to some intern somewhere clearly watches the things that you do, and it filtered its way up.
The Daily Wire, the Daily Wire added it to their video, but I mean, they might have just done it out of convenience, because this, I mean, this was hidden in probably like a 15-20 minute video. And not only that, it was in the middle of the video. It wasn't at the very beginning where it should be. It should be at the very beginning. It should be a standalone video. It should be a public retraction. The fact that they did it this way is just, most of the time when news outlets get something this incredibly wrong, they're forced to do front page retractions. This is just, it's like journalistic malpractice.
I do find it
Go ahead.
Just saying, I do find it interesting these days how you can also, using that watermark thing, and to a degree, like, I think I would encourage everyone to put little tiny watermarks somewhere hidden throughout things, because then you can track this. But how many journalists go around, instead of doing their own work, instead of making their own clips or anything, just grab whatever's circulating on Twitter or YouTube or something and use it as their own? And a lot of these people seem to be getting paid sometimes quite a lot of money, not really doing any work that anyone couldn't do just browsing Twitter, which is bizarre to me.
I mean, they got my subscribe thing on my channel, so it looks like they're taking it straight off my channel. Hilarious. I just noticed that.
if you're going to make an argument that you acted in self-defense, there needs to be some proof that there was an imminent threat. Now, what really mattered to me was how all of this unfolded. What was the thing that sparked it? What started all of it? And initially, I was under the assumption that Rittenhouse was the person who was chasing after Joseph Rosenbaum, that's how it had started. But I was wrong about that. Okay, so I want to correct the record. I was, in fact, wrong about that.
Wow, you don't see that too often, but it's not hard, by the way. Tell the truth. Let reality be your guide. It feels good. That's what decent people do.
There's
too few of them.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good.
That he should not have done that. He should have probably thanked her and praised the idea of changing your mind, probably admitted to something he did. Like, if you really wanted to do more than play to your base, if you really want to persuade someone, you need to put yourself to some degree on their level and admit that you're both human, capable of doing that. And instead, he seems to have tried to wrench that knife in.
Yeah, a little bit, isn't he? He's like, you got it wrong.
Yeah.
What a stupid bitch.
Yes.
Hey, Sean Hannity.
Oh.
That is one of those unfortunate things about the discourse with these, where there are plenty of opportunities. And I often wonder if any of these places have psychologists informing what they do, if any of them ever consult psychology. It seems like it would be really important to have them just for media consulting. And in fact, media consultants often do refer to psychological literature. So I'm not sure to what degree that hostility or playing to a base is intentional and informed by advertiser consulting, that sort of thing, or does he just not know? Well, I don't know which way it is. I don't.
Tucker? I'm not sure. I think ethical people obviously want to get sponsors that they agree with, because there's this ethics that go along with it. This is an interesting topic, because I don't know if you watch Brett and Heather Weinstein's podcast, but they're in the, picking sponsors of products that they would use and feel ethically, they feel ethically bound to only represent stuff that they agree with. Yet the products that they're picking are completely antithetical to the audience that they've developed because, they came out of academia and the right wing kind of embraced them because they were anti-woke liberals. But they're choosing all of these products to represent that are like super hippie products. Like I can't see any of their audience being interested in them.
Yeah, it's kind of hard in that way. Perspective taking sort of helps there because there are certainly going to be hippie seeming products that, well, let's say just products that are really simple and don't produce as much waste or chemical harm or whatever to the environment or whatever your classical hippie cares about. You don't have to market it that way to find it, though. There are plenty of regular products that aren't marked up 900% with that added labeling on it that does the exact same thing. So if you can take the perspective of the other side and realize that marketing turns them off, do the same thing, but with a product without that added labeling. So I think you can, if you sit down to think about it, I think you can usually accomplish the same thing. In fact, better, because then you're not turning people off of what you're trying to do.
But the product itself, I mean, look at Crowder. Like Crowder is selling guns and gold and all the things that typically the right wing buys into. Tim Pool is selling like survival food. They're selling like Earl Grey tea and stuff. It's like, okay.
Well, have any of them proposed that they feel some ethical burden to only select? It's a thing about, again, going back to authenticity. If those two academics feel they do have an ethical burden to represent things honestly, that's where you kind of have to navigate that to where it's something your audience would care about, but also something that you would support. And I think that is possible to do. But you're right.
But doesn't the audience dictate what you can market to them, though? This is why Brett Weinstein and Heather. I mean, I love them to death. I don't want to throw them under the bus, but it's such an interesting dilemma that they're these giant hippies. I mean, I read their book and I'm like, this is like the fact that people call Brett Weinstein a far right winger is insane, totally insane. I'm like, when's he going to start selling Birkenstocks on his show?
And aside from the marketing quandary, trying to navigate that ethically, if they present themselves as such, because again, that would be an authenticity issue. It is interesting, though, because that gives them ample opportunity, again, to persuade people or trying to perhaps teach them how to meet minds or teach them how to be persuasive or act persuasive and to be persuaded likewise. Because in this is the interesting thing in trying to be persuasive and trying to present yourself with tentative conclusions that are subject to change. You yourself are more subject to change your mind because you're not saying with absolute certainty, this is a fact, at which point, if you're wrong, you want to avoid that. It emotionally primes you to dig in your heels the stronger you state your opinion. So in trying to be persuasive, you yourself, I think, are more likely to be persuaded.
Do you do? And I noticed this. I mean, I was super into, a lot of stats and statistics and facts and stuff like that. And those persuade me definitely, but I don't think they persuade most people. And I don't even think you can persuade people. I've said that a bunch of times on the show and it always triggers everyone because I think a lot of people really want to persuade other people. And that's something they enjoy doing, which I think is, it doesn't, maybe I don't get a lot of pleasure out of it because it's so, I mean, it's like climbing Mount Everest. It's something that's virtually, I mean, it's very, very difficult to achieve.
Well, it is. And I used to have, for the longest time, the exact same problem because for my first run around YouTube, that is mainly what I focused on was
trying to persuade people.
Not the way I would put it now. I did it
Okay.
the way most people are doing it right now, where it's like, well, I have this data, this study, these are the facts. Your facts are wrong. Yeah, that does not work. In fact, it accomplishes, for the people who most need to be persuaded, it accomplishes the opposite.
Mhm.
What I believe might help instead is you can have these persuasive cases that are built off dealing with ambiguity and questioning whether or not the conclusions you draw from those facts
Mhm.
are the right conclusions, or if there are alternatives. The more people explore alternatives and can have multiple options, I think the more likely they are to frame one in a way that their values align with. That seems to be the better way to go about trying to persuade someone away from a given course of action. Because I don't
Do you think you can persuade people? It sounds like you do believe that.
initially, this is part of why I disappeared from the internet for a while, because I was kind of very distraught by the fact I hadn't managed to really ever persuade anyone. And after
Oh my God, you're disparaged.
very
You're
much
demoralized.
very much so, because
That's sad.
if you
I'm sorry.
do as much reading as I do every single day, and the people who know me would probably consider me obsessive, you put a lot of time and energy and effort into trying to understand the world, into trying to understand that it's very complicated. And then
Yes,
if you
so do
can't
I.
if you can't persuade anyone, what value does that have?
It's personal value. That's where you have to look for satisfaction. Yeah.
But
It's sad, but it's true.
there is that, and I definitely do follow that. Like, I didn't ever stop reading, but that is why
Well,
I stopped.
and also interaction with people like me, like you know, the people who are truth seekers.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. However, as I kept reading and going around different areas of psychology, because one of the things that's really important to do is hop around different fields, because the perspective you are looking at something from will define what the results will be. If you're only studying family, you're going to find correlations or causation relating to family. If you're only studying economics, you're going to find things related to economics. So, as I was hopping around there, what I found was my former attempts to look at persuasive literature were not all that promising. But when you look at the giant umbrella of cognitive dissonance theory and how to avoid priming that discomfort, or how to get
Can-
people to question.
Can you just quickly explain what cognitive dissonance is for people who might not know?
Yeah, one second.
You mentioned it as discomfort, which is a great way to put it.
These are going to be very brief summaries. I encourage anyone, you can get a cursory overview on Wikipedia, of course, but very briefly and roughly, the giant umbrella of cognitive dissonance theories, there are many theory components to this, is at base, when people are confronted with a conflict, with, say, they believe something is blue, someone else says it's red, just a very simple example. That actually represents in the brain as uncomfortable for people who are. It's less uncomfortable for people higher in openness.
Mm-hmm.
The lower they are in openness, I believe, the more uncomfortable it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm still, red and blue is not a big deal, but when you're talking about like the Kyle Rittenhouse case, like that, so many people see Kyle Rittenhouse as a failed school shooter.
Right.
So that it's like, I'm looking at a completely different scenario. Like they're watching that tape of him running down the street and they're assuming that like he's running to kill more people and that those people are trying to stop him from doing that.
And that deals with this whole persuasive problem of how do you deal with what happens way down the chain? Because we all have our intuitions that lead us to certain biases and interpretations and what philosophies we end up accepting. Those somewhat heritable, but largely heritable and environmentally conditioned intuitions drive what facts you seek out. So how do you deal with that at a worldview level? Because that's way down the chain. And
yeah, that's the problem, because people are not seeking out the truth. They want to believe that narrative. So they're not They won't change their mind.
And Sam Harris is one of those people. He was attached onto a neurology paper that was also trying to discover how to go about doing that. And as it turns out, the more, say, political or complicated or overall world explaining, I would put it, some given ideology is, the less amenable it is to change. So the more you try to correct it, the less likely it is to change. Meanwhile, simple like factoids, such as whether Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, those are most subject to change. So the more
What I
central,
make the distinction though, because I think it's important. The distinction Haidt makes is right, is what I always go back to, because who invented the light bulb, there's no moral component to. There can be, obviously, and there is when you're talking about, obviously the social justice warriors will say he's a white male, of course. So they want to bring this moral component into it. But that's what makes facts more susceptible to the cognitive dissonance, is when there's a moral component. Well, facts that don't have a moral component don't create cognitive dissonance. You agree with that, right?
I'm not entirely sure I agree with that in all cases, but for most of what we're thinking about and talking about here, that would generally be, I think, would be the case.
Yeah.
Well,
even if it's like a stupid fact, like the distance the sun is from the Earth, the way that someone might be attached to that is if they said one number and they were wrong about it. Then there's a moral component because it's attached to their status. If they got it wrong, if they were then there's a moral component to it. But other than that, the fact itself doesn't have a moral component to it.
Well, I'm looking at this at a higher level, not a subcomponent level. The higher level there is worldview, such as in total. So broadly the entire way in which you are framing and making sense of the world around you.
Okay.
The only way to shift that seems to deal with correlations to trait openness. So the more likely you are to be open to contradictory information, for one, that's only one part of it though. The second most important thing is cognitive reflection. So the more likely you are to reflect not just on what you've heard, but your intuitions. One of those things, when I read a lot of research regarding conspiracy theories.
What are the intuitions though?
Well, I'm getting into that with the example of conspiracy-minded and conspiracy theories that people make. They trust their intuitions far more.
Okay.
Than most
The
people.
faith in the intuition.
Yes. That
not
trust,
skeptical of their own intuitions. Yeah.
And that's kind of what defines people who believe in, say, 3, 5, or every conspiracy theory whatsoever. It's this idea that their feelings have that some malicious group is just trying to do something bad, broadly speaking. And this is true right, left, whatever.
I think authoritarians probably would trust their intuitions a lot more than most people.
Somewhat, yes. And that's true, again, on the left and the right. Hold on.
Let me read some super chats, because there's a bunch of interesting stuff going on in the chat that I would like to put on screen, but I was trying to hold off on super chats.
I should probably quickly wrap up that point then.
Go ahead.
To your initial question, how that all plays in together is there is a moral component, there's a worldview component. I'm saying you can persuade people by approaching it as being able to be persuaded yourself, because that can prime what we would say is prime, or encourage them to adopt reflecting on their own intuitions if you admit your own.
I used to think that, but I've done it so many times and it has just ended in complete disaster where it doesn't work. People want to bring you over to their worldview. So when you make a concession, they see that as, oh, this person I can win over to my side. And that's all they really focus on doing. They're not interested in like seeing your perspective. They see you as like a mark, an easy mark. And it's more discouraging. It's like, I always try and tell them, look, I'm not playing this game with you where I'm trying to win you over to my position. I don't want you to play that game with me. Okay. I'm trying to understand your position. And I would think it would be interesting if you could actually understand mine. And then that's when I get totally demoralized because there's no way in hell they're ever even capable of understanding my position.
On that point, I think that the single most important factor there is avoiding at all cost, even if this is actually true, avoiding at all cost implying anything about motivations, intent, anything like that. What you want to do is focus on I would say that the most modifiable parts of what someone's worldview is. So you're not challenging their moral intuitions. You're not impugning their character and saying or implying you're a bad person. What you want to do is focus on modifying something in their worldview that doesn't conflict with the intuition that led them there.
But you're still playing the game though. You're trying to modify their worldview.
Well, and I'm open to mine being modified in turn. And I think this is kind of, again, that trait you see more in centrists is that willingness to do cognitive reflection, even though there's still a liberal bias there, at least for some of the papers I've seen. I just tweeted out, there's a German paper that basically ties cognitive ability to political centrism as well. And I posted a Chad Max Stirner meme with it. There is research like that. And this is why I think it's very important to reconsider persuasiveness, because it's really hard to do. And you can look at street epistemology and how they react to it, because while you're trying to be open to persuasion, you have to fight down your constant intuitions of that's bullshit, that's bullshit, that's bullshit. Like you listen to them after doing street epistemology and they actually get really angry. So it really, for a lot of people, makes you really upset even trying to be open to persuasion. And that's kind of an element of that cognitive dissonance. Regarding super chats, though, I need to get some more water, and I'll be right back.
Okay, that's cool. I was looking for. Oh, here it is. Foo Bar Freak says Brett and Heather are selling mushroom coffee. Can you get a more hippie product? Like that's straight out of Santa Cruz. Mushroom coffee? I don't know. I have my share of right wingers in the audience. What right winger is buying mushroom coffee? Please tell me it's not true. So funny. Mr. Tickle Trunk for 20 Canadian says, one of the rare nights I get to watch you live anymore and wanted to show my support. By the way, comic book when I want to show my friends and brag I'm in it. Also, I used to be the person in that tweet. I'm very much center left now. That's funny. The comic book, I don't actually think we're going to make our deadline. I'm kind of super bummed about it, but kind of becoming resigned to it. I was working like 10 hours a day for 4 weeks straight, and I completely screwed up my arm. So it's put me on a schedule where I can't really work as much on the comic as I want to. Actually, I haven't worked on it for like 3 days because my arm is completely jacked up. But I have 3 pages that I'm working on putting the finishing touches on so I can update the campaign and let everyone know the terrible, sad news. So this is officially the first I'm mentioning it, but obviously you're asking me in a super chat, so I feel obligated to let you know.
Yeah, I was going to ask if we had any time before this how your shoulder was doing, because you seem to be a little bit in pain there.
I am. It's the biggest part of it is, and I don't want to go. I don't like. Come on, nobody wants to talk about my fucking shoulder. So let's go back to super chats. Riggs for $5 says, "A train all aboard." Also, Adam, the Uzi is either an ATF magnet or the dumbest thing in the world. You and Sitch need to get some gun knowledge. Yeah, I don't. My granddad, man, I was raised around guns. My whole family are gun nuts. My granddad's a huge gun nut. But my gun knowledge is terrible. Yeah, and every time I share that picture of me with my It's not my AR, obviously. It's a friend of mine's AR, but my finger's on the trigger and everyone freaks out. They're like, "Oh my God, Adam, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that." So,
You know, I just thought of a way that I could probably make the libertarians really like me. Abolish the ATF.
oh, really? I don't know anything about the ATF. So, utter nonsense for $5. S-Class sets the clock ahead the wrong way during daylight savings and orders food 5 minutes before the restaurant closes. Oh! A-Team gives Brain a wrench. I did give Brain a wrench. Now I'm wondering about Brian. Is Brian cool? Can I give Brian a wrench? Seems like Brian's in the chat a lot. And I'm wondering about there's some people in the chat that I think that I see quite often. So who should I not give a wrench? That's the real question. Who doesn't get a wrench today? Let's see here. Moving on. Hannah's stepsister for $1.99 says, "Wrench me, Daddy Adam." Oh, it's Hassan's stepsister. What am I doing? Hassan's stepsister? Don't you have a wrench on the main channel? I don't know. Can you have double wrenches? I'm not certain that's a good idea. Andrew Clark for $5 says, "MTG Mildeck is like playing basketball and fouling out the other team. Mildecks are for smug rule jerks who don't want to play the game, just win." So Andrew Clark is basically calling Sitch we're smug rule jerk. Look at that. Calling out S-Class here. Yeah. I don't know anything about the Magic the Gathering Mildecks, but
Yeah, I don't either specifically, but I think the concept of mill decks in most games is to make the other player like drain out their cards or something like that. I think that's
nice.
what they're getting at. And also, you just strawmanned Sitch, because I'm pretty sure he was saying that mill decks are awful.
Oh, he was?
Or
Okay.
was that him or was that Aiden? You know, honestly, I can't remember now.
Yeah, I can't either. We missed their position. Mr. Tickle Trunk for $5 says, "Also, Adam, Adam, it's rather modest. We're calling ourselves the A+ team. Don't need to add more modifiers to prove anything or a made up S rating." Yeah, I think A-Team is one of the few modifiers that I possess. Like I don't put a lot of modifiers in my I'm always skeptical of people. You look at their Twitter bio and they're like liberal, progressive,
Yeah. Well,
atheist, yeah, bunch of things.
Well, the chat is saying it's Aiden was the one who was supporting the mill decks and Sitch was the one who was against it. So I guess
Okay, good.
According to the chat, I was initially correct. According to the chat. Don't hate me.
Add a couple moderators here. We got a coach in lunacy. We got Bandit 6. Got to add some moderators here. Got to get some more wrenches going. We might get a rogue bot, guys. Be on your best. Be ready.
You're the MMT of wrenches, I swear.
Be ready, guys. We could have a rogue, one of those rogue bots any second now. We need to be prepared. We need to be prepared. Danimal the Bruce for $19.99 says, "I just had a pretty good private DM conversation with that BLM supporter from your Rittenhouse tweet." Really, Danimal? I know. See, I do that. I just do the eyes. I'm like, and I constantly talk about how you can't change people's minds. So I know that that's a little reverse psychology going on, you guys. You guys are like, I'm going to show Adam. I'm going to fucking show Adam.
Like
so
I said,
continuing with the super chat real quick. A lot of people just want to be listened to without judgment and actually have an honest disagreement. Here. This book that I was reading that I was talking about on the Sunday show. Here, I'll look it up real quick. What were you going to say, Wojak?
No, it was just a joke. Like I said, half the time I can't tell if you're a mastermind just trying to manipulate people into doing the opposite of what you say, or
I would never do that because I know I know that the truth is on my side with both positions because I honestly don't believe you can change people's minds. I think it's near impossible. I think people
Yeah.
can change their own minds upon self-reflection, but usually you're not the person that can do it. So I do believe that, but I also know at the same time that me saying that you can't do something really makes people want to do it even more. And
Reactance.
so
Yeah.
so it makes them want to try. And I think the trying is fun. I mean, it is fun. A lot of people have fun doing it. So
Yeah, it gets really messy when you the more you read about psychology, because then you're like, am I doing this because I believe it, or am I doing this for an outcome, and then you just start questioning yourself down a black rabbit hole.
yeah, no, I'm with you. So I'm reading a book, High Conflict: Why We Get Trapped and How We Get Out, which is a super interesting book. Haidt was talking about it in an interview. Amanda Ripley is the author. And she says in the book about the same thing that you're saying, Danimal, that a lot of these high conflict situations happen because people just don't feel like they're being honestly understood. And they want to be understood. I think that's great. Yeah. Understanding people is something, it's so easy for people to do, but they just don't want to do it. It's just Tabby for $5 says, congrats on the Fox News shout out. The power of watermarks. Ha ha. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Now I'm updating my bio as we speak to say I was on Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I can say that now, right?
You should tweet something like that at Tucker Carlson and see if you can get any traction that way, because that would be funny.
Sitch and Adam from the Tucker Carlson show. Isn't he like a huge white supremacist? That's a reaction we're gonna get. The Alabastard for $5 says Kyle should sue these media outlets for defamation harder than Nick Sandmann. I hope he does. I hope that happens. That would be super cool. I feel for Kyle. I'm wondering, I was thinking kind of half-heartedly today if we could reach out to Kyle and get Kyle on the show. That would be pretty interesting. He probably just wants to go back to his life and avoid any of this controversy. The Butter Amble for $5 says, love to see you streaming, Adam. Saw Destiny stream on the Kyle trial. Was good stuff. Thanks, CT, for the awesome commission. A-Team Thursday stream. Yeah, that's right. The Thursday stream is pretty cool. I've had it go. I think we're on episode, what's this episode? Like 40. I don't know. It's off the screen right now, so I can't see. We're in the 40s, definitely. So I started doing this with Deadwood Dale from Comicsgate. Was originally we were going to do this together, and he decided he wanted to do his own thing. No hate, obviously, and I just figured I would keep it going. So utter nonsense for $2. For our guest, any book, channel, Rex, or advice? That's at you, Wojak.
Oh, I would generally recommend most things written by Robert Sapolsky if you want a good understanding of how to go about understanding science. And the reason I say that, and I wrote an article about this, Scott Alexander has written some similar articles about this, to kind of really understand your options in going about something, you have to hop fields, because every field is only studying one thing. So if you want an understanding of that thing, a really broad one, and you need a broad one in order to think up policies, because otherwise you're stuck, right? If you only look at genes, well, what are you going to do with the genes? Wait for gene therapy, right? If you only look at family, well, what, are you going to make it a law to force people to marry? You can't do that, really. So if you look at multiple fields, you at least have some options to pick from. And Robert Sapolsky is probably the best author I have found for both teaching behavioral biology and teaching how to go about doing that kind of hopping.
I'm pretty sure I read his last book. Like it was a monolith, right? Robert Sapolsky. He's the guy that did the baboon research, right?
Yes. he also has, I think, one of the most, if not the most, watched lecture series from Stanford's YouTube channel.
Right. Behave. That's the book. The
Yeah.
Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst. Robert Sapolsky. That's 26 hours and 27 minutes of my life. Well, not really, because I listened to it at faster speed, but yeah, he's a good. That book is man, everything in biology.
Well, and it isn't just about biology in that way, because I sincerely believe that also this is probably the best way people should go about being persuaded and also persuading other minds. Because when people are discussing these things online, I often see Sargon of Akkad, for example, or a bunch of other people. Thomas Sowell is often cited as an alternative response to. Now, hear me out. I'm not criticizing.
No,
Thomas.
I'm laughing. Someone in the chat said, "Adam, does your arm hurt more than Gage's?"
Oh, actually, maybe I should put a pin in it. Are you getting close to done with the super chats?
I'm hoping. Yeah, I can rip through them and then.
Oh yeah,
we'll be
please
all caught
continue. I'll talk
Death by
about the other
Sloth, $5. They say Kyle shouldn't have been at the riots. If Jacob Blake hadn't been where he was, violating a restraining order, there'd have been no riots. Great point. Great point. Yeah. We can play this game forever, right? That's the problem with this game. It's completely ridiculous. I don't know if you guys saw. Well, I can't remember the witness that came up, but they had a witness that had a cell phone video from the other side of the shooting where the people were in the parking lot wrecking cars and just destroying property. And man, that video just, oh God, it's so difficult to watch because it's just complete disregard for anything or anyone. It's sick. It's completely sickening. And that guy was driving around. He's like, he basically testified that I was driving around because I thought if I could shoot videos of people destroying property, I could give it to the police and they could pay, someone could do something about it. They're destroying our community. This is the thing too, because all the social justice warriors will talk about how, oh my God, blacks and people of color and their neighborhoods, their property values, and they aren't able to maintain wealth and accumulate wealth over time and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, destroying property really destroys property values. It's the people who think that is going to be some kind of thing that's going to help anyone. Just, it's ridiculous to me. It's so against the facts. E.M. Penner for 25 Canadian says, personally, my mind changed when I listened to Destiny use the same argument he did against ethno-nats that he did against socialists. Do you think this is a useful tactic? Consistency is definitely a useful tactic. And sometimes people can use consistency against you. Let me just one thing real quick, Wojak. We have evolved to look for consistent people for reciprocal altruism to engage in partnerships with. So we're very keen to observe inconsistency in people and equate that to being bad, or so when people are this is also why people are hesitant to be inconsistent, because they want to appear to be consistent, appear to be a trustworthy cooperation partner. The problem is when the facts change, then you're forced to be inconsistent because you're dealing with new information. So sometimes that can keep people from accepting new information. So consistency is like a double-edged sword. That's all I want to say, is because, there are some people who, in order for them to maintain consistency, are not going to be able to see the new facts or to see the Kyle Rittenhouse case in any other way than he's this white supremacist, school shooter type individual. And that hurts. That's when consistency works against you. But go ahead, Wojak.
Yeah, to add on to what you said, the cognitive consistency is a one of those elements of cognitive dissonance theory. And I think you covered most of it, actually. The only thing I would caution against is calling it a tactic. Something that is important to realize, very briefly, is, as you mentioned, everyone sees themselves as consistent. So it isn't a tactic. If they thought they were inconsistent, they would stop believing what they believe. So highlighting by contrasting is useful if you're trying to show someone that they're being inconsistent, but that could also go the other way. And I wouldn't really call it a tactic.
Yeah.
Bad optics.
Tactic sounds bad, but I mean, we're all just friends here, so. I mean, at least you're honest. I mean, this is the thing that bugs me is I go into, like, honesty is very important to me. Honesty is one of the most important principles, I think. And I go into these conversations and I lay my cards on the table. I'm like, you're not going to change my mind. So that's something you probably shouldn't aim towards. And people usually are cool with that. And I tell them, I'm not trying to change your mind. If you change your mind, that's cool. I'm not trying to not make you change your mind either. I'm interested in talking to people. I'm interested in learning new things. And I want to understand your position better, that kind of thing. And I am genuinely interested in other people's thinking. So I really, part of not believing that you really can change people's minds, I think is helpful there.
I'm not sure. My approach is kind of the opposite, where, as I was saying, I think that in order to persuade someone else, you have to be open to persuasion, and it kind of helps using that language of being more tentative to feel less absolute in your position. And other people will mirror that to some degree, especially if they respect you. So I'm not entirely sure if it's the best idea to, like, from the outset, say absolutely not. It depends on what you're trying to do, of course.
The major conflict over the stuff with Academic Agent seemed to be, are we on the verge of societal collapse? That seems to be the difference. And I was reading some of the comments on those videos, and someone said, you really should ask what it would take to convince them. And this, I think, is a good question in debates. But Sitch and I have talked about what it would take to convince us in like 100 Sunday shows. Like, we talk about that all the time. One of the things was, if the Supreme Court, if the president cannot nominate a Supreme Court justice unless the president's party controls the Senate, I think that's a huge sign that the institutions are breaking down in a way that's like, getting to the past the point of no return. We've admitted, like, if Kyle Rittenhouse is locked up, if Kyle Rittenhouse goes to jail, I would consider that a sign. That would be a sign that we are further along than I had hoped.
I should probably put a second pin in that, or you're never going to get through the super chats.
Okay, so Mr. Tickle Trunk for $5 says, Daryl Davis proves the convincing people is impossible is a stupid idea just because something takes a long time. I've done it too. So you can't, so can you. Daryl Davis, yeah. The thing about Daryl Davis, though, is Daryl Davis, first of all, Daryl Davis was trying to convince racists that black people weren't a group that they should be racist against. So Daryl Davis had the right, was the right person to do that convincing. Daryl Davis was a black man who was super cool. So Daryl Davis could show them what someone like me could not necessarily tell them. And showing and not telling it, I think, is a much better way to convince people. So I don't necessarily know, though, like if I obviously I would not have the same kind of success as Daryl Davis in the mission that Daryl Davis had. Do you agree with me, Wojak? Do you disagree with me here? Or?
Well, what he does in a way is kind of like what I've long since done, because I've been in, I suppose, what the mainstream media would call extremist groups for a very long time, and I'm nothing of an extremist, I think, myself. So in a way, I don't want to compare myself to Daryl Davis, because I think he's a lot more successful than I am at it, because he seems to be able to naturally do it.
Well, also you're working over the internet, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's another thing. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I think in general, though, the more people who try, even over the internet, if there's more of this perception, like I said, about not being punished for mistakes, about being forgiven, is a very important thing. Because if you can't be forgiven, well, why not just double down? Because if you lose either way, right?
Yeah, totally. I think you have to really figure out what you can achieve being you, which I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a huge component of it. I guess I'm just a realist. Can I have a sip of Adam's Coke Samimi for $5? Says only if those are magic mushrooms. Listen, you think Gemini, do you think right wingers are going to buy mushroom tea that's magic mushrooms from Brett and Heather Weinstein? You're crazy. You're totally insane. That's more the problem of what I'm talking about. Wrong product for the wrong market.
Real quick, I just realized I did this again, and I hate that I do this. I forgot to preface this entire conversation with regard to discussing psychology or anything. I am not a scientist. I have no academic affiliation or
that doesn't matter.
Anything.
Who cares?
Well, sometimes people do think, unfortunately, I guess some people are persuaded enough by me that they think I might have credentials. Just, I do not have any at all, just to be clear.
Well, you had convinced me until you told me you didn't have any credentials. Now I'm completely unconvinced.
I just want to make sure that I'm honest about that, because that does worry me.
I'm just kidding around. Can I have a sip of Adam's Coke Samimi for $5? Says, my back has been giving me so much pain. I hope you take care of yourself, Adam. I dread going down the stairs, and I hope you don't suffer like that. Really, that sucks. I'll be fine. I'll totally be fine. I need to chill out. I need to realize that you can't draw 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for 4 weeks in a row, which just sucks. The worst thing about it is that I want to be drawing. I totally want to be drawing, and I'm not drawing. I was doing a little light editing of videos for the channel today instead of drawing, which is what I really want to be doing.
Well, you gotta sometimes stop and just do nothing. Just that drives some people crazy, but it helps.
No, sometimes. Shut up! I hate
that. Yeah. I'll be right back.
J Mac for $20. Sitch said he loves you. Sitch said he loves Udex, but will never play Mill, I believe. Yeah, I don't know anything about Magic the Gathering, so I don't know what a U-deck is. I saw Aiden in the chat. What's up, Aiden? So she can dispel the mystery about who has what decks. Is this Brain or Brian? This is Brain. Brain for $5. This is silly. Everyone knows force is the best way to get people to do what you want while embedding dependence to keep them doing it. REC CV19 mandate. Oh yeah. The COVID-19 mandate. Yeah, exactly. Obviously, you're being sarcastic here. brain. And I do agree with you. I think the mandate is the stupidest idea. I can't remember where I read this, but I read something about how, when they discovered that sailors would avoid getting scurvy if they ate vegetables, or vitamin C was a problem. So there was fruits and vegetables that they were trying to get the crew to eat. Nobody wanted to eat it because who wants to eat fucking broccoli, right? So the ship would do the captain of some ship or whatever. I don't know how they got this idea, but they would make a special dish that was a vegetable dish that only the senior officers would get. None of the fucking crewmen would be allowed to get this dish. This dish would be completely off limits to the scoundrels below deck. And of course, that made them want it even more, right? Obviously, if the fucking officers are getting this, how dare you? How dare you keep us from eating that delicious broccoli?
Yeah, it's so bizarre to me too, because like how I was saying, I wonder to what degree news agencies are perhaps using psychology to a bad effect. I don't understand how the world governments, like the UK, the US, Canada, they must have psychologists on staff. Somebody must have told them that what they were doing in politicizing this in the media and so forth was guaranteeing that whichever side was maligned would do the opposite.
I don't think anyone's running it. I don't think anyone's running the ship. I honestly don't. I don't think they know what the hell they're doing, to be honest with you. Ian Penner for $2 says, can I get a wrench for debating AA? Fuck, hell yeah. Are you kidding me? Well, I haven't given you a wrench yet. I can't believe I've been given Penner a wrench. Wolf's Pain for $2 says, Daddy Adam, can I get a wrench? S-Class rejected me. What? Wolf's Pain, I haven't seen you in the chat much, so I'm hesitant to give you a wrench, but stick around for a while and I definitely will give you a wrench. And just screw S-Class. S-Class rejects a lot of people, so don't get dispirited by it. Let's see here. Did I? Oh yeah, here we go. Don't want to skip anyone. Just making sure I don't skip anyone. The Loch Ness Monster for $3.50. That's a very familiar price. $3.50. People say you cut your free will with sugar. Say it ain't so. Hell no. By the way, everyone gets 10 times free will on the Adam Friended channel. The A-Team Thursday stream is where you come to get your discount free will. That's right. 10x. You just got 350 units of free will.
Your MMT of free will.
Don't you love it? Look, Lucifer the Doberman for 100 units of free will. Lucifer the Doberman for 10 Canadian says, whenever Kyle should have never been there, arguments come up. Okay. Whenever Kyle should have never been there, arguments come up. I always think she should have never been dressed like that if she didn't want to be raped. Yep, I think of that too. It's exactly the what was she wearing argument. That's exactly what it is. The what was she wearing argument. Although it's with guns though, so it never works. This argument will never convince any lefty that Kyle shouldn't have been there because they don't see gun culture and slut culture the same. They're like, slut culture is great. Gun culture is evil. How could you make this argument? Of course it's completely, I mean, logically it's inconsistent, but they don't see it that way.
Well, we feel first and think second. This is true of everyone. So they feel a difference. The only way you're going to be able to address that is if you make sure they don't feel a difference somehow.
Yes. It's true. Yeah. Feelings come first. Strategic reasoning second. J-Mac for $20. Oh, I almost forgot. My normie wife recently got on Twitter. I advised against it. and Adam liked one of her tweets, and it made her so happy. I guess Twitter ain't all bad. Well, let her tell me her secret account, and I'll give her a follow too. You can make her day. Twitter's a mixed bag. It really is, because I do think it helps you kind of get a little bit thicker skinned. Like, people are always tweeting insults at me all the time, and it doesn't faze me at all anymore, which, obviously when I first got on Twitter, when I first got on the internet, that stuff would just, I'd be insanely disparaged by that stuff. But you really got to be a little bit thicker skinned just in the environment we're in. And it is a lot of fun. We tell a lot of jokes today on Twitter. So I've been doing this thing when people have totally ridiculous Kyle Rittenhouse takes. I started retweeting them with the little eye emoji, the little look emoji. And people would just, like, you could tell some people were getting so triggered by these tweets. They were just like, oh my God, this is totally insane. Stop doing it. But other people, they started sending me crazy tweets. They're like, here, retweet this one. So we got a little game going. And the guy we were talking about, the guy that Danimal the Bruce said he had DMs with, he's just a guy trying to figure it out too, trying to get his likes and follows on Twitter by saying insane shit. You gotta have a good attitude about it. And like I said, I'm trying to have a good attitude about it. It's a little difficult with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, because legitimately I'm going to be completely demoralized if Kyle Rittenhouse goes to jail, because it's just a grave injustice, just right in your face. And the fact that so many people aren't even really going to see it as an injustice is, it's part of that. It's scary. It is scary. It is very, very, it is very disparaging. So
it's also very difficult, because if he's let off, the unfortunate thing is that a lot of the lefties on Twitter are going to feel the same way. And
but they're just, they don't see reality correctly though, right? Fuck them, right?
Well, no, because what you want to do, that would be kind of like a feud where it never de-escalates. It just keeps ramping up because they're all telling their own side, oh, this is the worst thing ever. So unfortunately, if that continues, that's how you get higher and higher degrees of fear and paranoia, uncertainty, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing is though, I recently read Woke Racism by John McWhorter, and I completely buy into his thesis that we're witnessing the birth of a new religion that you're not going to get. There's no way you're ever going to get through to these people. So I see that as, religions as they evolve, like, drift further and further from reality.
Well,
so that's just going to be a thing.
So my question there is, what do you think then about atheists who over time are persuaded out of religion? Just as a comparison, since you're comparing that to religion.
What do you mean? What do I think about them?
Well, they lose their religion, so at some point, something persuaded them out of it. Clearly it must have.
I know. Aiden's talk. Aiden's. Yeah. I love you, Aiden. I totally lost my train of thought.
I was asking about
atheists being talked out of religion. Are you saying that there are a certain number of, there are very few atheists. Obviously, some people do get talked out of, some people do become atheists, because I think a lot of people become atheists because they are somehow truth seekers, but a lot of people don't become atheists because they're truth seekers. A lot of people become atheists because they become feminists, and religion is patriarchal. A lot of people become atheists because, for political reasons.
I would frame going away from the talking ideas part of it, because as we both agree, feelings come first. If you feel a contradiction there, that again plays right into cognitive dissonance. So the more I suppose your mind is trained to detect those contradictions in your feelings as well, and the more intensely you scrutinize that, again, it goes back to questioning your intuitions.
Are
And-
you arguing though that we should be trying to talk people out of the social justice? I'm unclear on whether or not you buy McWhorter's argument that we need to learn to work around them.
In a pragmatic sense, it helps to do, well, you can do both. I'm not sure I disagree with him, because I would say you definitely want to be doing both.
Mhm.
But there should be allowance, and I think there should be people out there who engage with extremists honestly, and being persuaded and persuading them in turn, like building that trust. And that's kind of a thing that they all fear that is absent now, is a lack of ability to trust not only the system, but other citizens.
But the thing is, though, about extremism, they're just going to jump from one. They're going to be like, oh, I'm an extreme Christian. Now I'm an extreme atheist. I mean, they're just going to jump from one. They're like, oh, I'm an extreme racist. Now I'm an extreme anti-racist. It's like they're just bouncing all over the place.
Some people do. Generally, I think in aggregate, that's true. But when you look at, say, dealing with these things in a clinical way and looking at clinical research, clearly therapy and things like that give people cognitive tools to reduce things like neuroticism, to reduce what plays into feeling so scared or angry. Actually, apparently it's mostly anger in reacting to things. So if that works and other people can be persuaded, can change their mind, like, I don't have a bullet point list of how to go about this, but I think it is entirely feasible. And I think giving that up only plays into this problem. I think giving that up is the worst possible thing you could do.
Giving up what?
Giving up trying to be persuasive, giving up trying to mediate these concerns. Because if you give that up, I mean, what's left? You're basically throwing your towel in the ring and saying, well, to hell with centrism. The centrists have to be authoritarian now. And I don't think...
Not really. I mean, in my worldview, the extremes just cancel each other out. The centrists are always the kingmakers.
In a way, yeah. They are a very tiny minority of the population. Yeah. I just am concerned about the effect that attitude might have, because these communities that I've been in, they want to feed on that. They want to thrive on that. And sometimes they say it explicitly. They want people to think there is no other option. And when people give up believing that they can change the minds of others, that they can reconcile feelings between people, when you give that up, then you're kind of, in a way, giving up democracy. In spirit, anyway. I'm sorry. Continue with the super chats.
No, it's interesting what you're saying. Maybe you're right. Maybe you are right. I don't know. Brian K says, Adam, I feel like you'd benefit from Vervaeke's recent thoughts on religion, atheism, and non-theism. I mean, I'm a Vervaeke fan for sure, and I've watched Vervaeke's dealing with the meaning crisis. I have a kind of a different take on the meaning crisis, because a lot of what people say is the meaning crisis. I think they might be overselling it. I think people find meanings in different ways that is being undetected by the people who are talking about the meaning crisis. So I do think there are people find meaning in ways that are not the ways people used to find meaning. So I think that's a part of the equation. John Smith for $4.99. What's up, John? Says, are you a doomer alt? Asking for a friend. That's definitely aimed at you, Wojak.
Well, I did add him as well while you were reading the other thing. No, I've been around a lot longer than Doomer Media has. Like I said, it kind of completely dropped off the internet for, I think, about 2 years. And then I kind of think I've worked my way toward resolving that problem I had. So I figured I got to try again. If I honestly believe this, I've got to test it. I've got to be out there again.
Reed Nicewonder, who has a great channel, Cordial Curiosity, you should all check out. You should all subscribe to. Reed Nicewonder is one of my good friends here on YouTube. He's been with me since I started my channel early on, and he does street epistemology. He says, Reed Nicewonder for $5 says, I'm going to UCLA tomorrow to record some street epistemology interviews. The best yet counterintuitive way to change minds by instilling doubt. Yeah, I do think the street epistemology is a good way to change minds, obviously, but I would categorize that as you're not really changing their minds. You're facilitating an environment for them to change their own minds, which I do definitely believe in. And I'm curious, Reed, you have to do like a Kyle Rittenhouse question, because I'm just some of the takes on Kyle Rittenhouse are just fucking insane. So crazy. Yeah, I'm curious.
I'm actually very glad Reed sent that, because the interesting thing, and I'm not entirely sure how accurate this is, but I'm going to try it anyway. When you do street epistemology, there seems to be a very big difference between people who start off, like I said, with that persuasive and persuadable language of admitting that they don't have absolute certainty, of admitting this is what they know given what they have. And then you have, say, the flat earthers or people like that, where they're stating things in absolutes over and over and over again. And when you start to question them in a way where their brain starts or could see contradictions, they go in a loop over and over and over again.
Reed is super smart about his epistemology too.
Yeah, I've seen that in one of their streams recently. There was I wish I could remember what it was off the top of my head, but that did happen in one of the past week's streams where the guy was just looping in a circle. When something like that happens, I think the person, unfortunately, is just reaffirming their own view and digging in their heels. I'm still trying to figure out what might be the best way to go about resolving that situation. It might be reaffirming your own uncertainty or ambiguity, or using examples like that, reaffirming basically your own humanity to the other person, your own humility. Maybe that's the way to do it. I'm not sure, though.
He sets up, first of all, he asks them their level of certainty on the claim. And he even used to do it where, like, the level of certainty, he'd do top to bottom, like the top was the most certain and the bottom was the least certain. And he was like, that even sets up, a bias. So now he does it like left to right on the certainty level, which is cool. Like I said, Reed's totally smart. So he knows, he's like trying to eliminate as much bias as humanly possible. But I do think it is good to ask somebody their level of certainty in the very, very beginning, and then ask them, what would it take for you to change that level of certainty? But I mean, the things that I believe I have, I don't know if I'm super uncertain about a lot of things that I mean, I believe them out of necessity because you have to have beliefs, but the certainty, something could come along and change my certainty tomorrow, later today, even. Joe the Mig for $5 says, Samimi, find a good physical therapist, ideally one that knows McKenzie method. Adam, get back to work. I want my comic. I want you to have your comic. Hopefully there's been obviously a bit of a learning curve here on the first comic, but Sitch and I would like to do a second comic if we are able to. So hopefully that's another thing that you're kind of weighing, because I think I mean, we probably could have got the comic out sooner, but the level of detail and me obviously getting better, you can't draw for like 10 hours a day for 4 weeks straight and not like make massive improvements. So I'm just over, and it's not just like I haven't just worked on the comic for 4 weeks in a row. Like I've been consistently working on it, but it's just putting in the suit, like doing the 10-hour days is what killed me. But yeah, obviously we want to deliver you a comic that's amazing. And the pages that I'm working on putting the final touches on are just, they're so fucking badass. Like there's this one page, there's a fight scene that takes place in the end of the book that is just completely crazy. And there's one page, it's like a full page that I'm doing like the manga speed lines, and I'm doing the speed lines in color. It's fucking great. It's like my best work ever. So obviously if we deliver a book that you guys are like, wow, this is amazing, obviously Adam worked his ass off on this, then people are going to be like more likely to back a second book. So
No, people also do care about your health. I would hate for
nobody cares.
like I'm just saying, man. I've seen people have repetitive stress injuries. I would hate for you to have to deal with that long term.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up some videos, some tutorials on how, maybe I'm drawing incorrectly. I mean, I thought I was trying to do things correctly, but maybe I'm not. Utter Nonsense for $2 says, thinking about switching unis and major. Any ideas? Well, Utter Nonsense, I don't know what your major is and what uni you're at. I mean, I judge universities by how, like, the density of female attention. So that's the way I always look at the university. So I don't know if I was ever interested in education. Let me see here. Utter Nonsense. When is your thing coming up? When do you have your, I remember on Sunday show we were giving you some terrible advice. I hope you didn't take any of that advice. So Diogenes for $5 says, A-Team runs the Sunday stream. Hell yeah, of course we do. Don't tell Sitch. Dr. Thalem for $5 says, Adam, joint pain like your shoulder can sometimes be improved with glucosamine and fish oil supplements. It's worth a try if your pain is persistent. Well, I'll definitely give those a try.
But is he really a doctor?
I don't care. I'll look it up. I'll definitely look it up. I took like a break for 3 days, and I healed up very nicely. I was feeling good. And then I did like 2 days in a row where I drew for like 10 hours because I was just super into, like, I want to finish those pages up. And that was a mistake. I need to do like 4-hour days, which is just fucking depressing because, like, I'm a 10-hour day kind of guy. I always have been.
Well, you can, to help mitigate that, maybe do mobility exercises, but I'm not a doctor. Have you been to see one? Because they would be able to help you work out how to prevent those injuries.
I did get in my fight with my wife about seeing a doctor. So does that count? Do I get credit for that? So hopefully.
Yeah, well, I might be siding with Mrs.
I know.
Mrs.
What kind of friends are you? Wolf's Pain for $5 says, understood. I more of a listener lurker than a chatter. Mostly while I work on the other things or literally at work on Sunday streams. Okay. That's Wolfsbane. Wolfsbane has convinced me. You're getting a wrench, buddy. Wasn't it Wolfsbane that was asking for a wrench? Official lurker wrench delivered to you. Just for you. But I do thank you for listening to the Sunday stream and for joining in here. You probably just jumped in here because you were like, Adam goes crazy with the wrenches. Let me see if I can participate. You'd heard the legend of the wrenches on the Sunday stream, and you were like, I'm going to get me some of that. I feel like oh, no, I'm not. Right here. Satoshi was a Reploid for 50 knock dollars. You should hold Janny auditions. Get some entertainment for wrenches also. Escaping the Rabbit Hole by Mick West is a good book about changing minds. Well, maybe I'll check that out. I did read Peter Boghossian's book about how to have impossible conversations. And I even did a live stream with Peter Boghossian, but I kind of feel, and you just get this feeling about people. I probably shouldn't say this. And I don't want to throw any shade at Peter Boghossian, but I kind of am, because I feel like Peter Boghossian is a little bit of a clout chaser. Have you read Peter Boghossian? Wojak, am I wrong?
Mostly when I'm reading things, I'm reading primary scholarly articles, blogs, things like that. I kind of have some impatience with books, especially when they don't make citations, and then it's like, well, what is he basing this off of? I gotta go digging. If a book doesn't have the citations and an honest summary of what they cite, I just immediately, well, this is trash. I'm not going to bother. To be clear, I didn't read his book. I have no idea if it's like that. I'm just saying in general, I don't tend to.
Brett and Heather made that mistake in their book, and I was actually quite shocked by it. But I wonder if Brett and Heather just having a tough go of it because of, they were university professors. They're used to that lifestyle, and being a podcaster and trying to make a living off YouTube is a much different thing. So I mean, I feel super bad for Heather and Brett belong in academia, and it fucking sucks that they've been shut out of academia. Lucifer the Doberman for 10 Canadian says, I am going on a trip to Vancouver this weekend to DJ with my friends. Then we will be going to see Unleash the Archers. Is that a movie? They are my favorite Canadian band. Everyone should check them out. Well, I will check them out, definitely. I'm always looking for interesting music. Unleash the Archers. That's a cool name for sure. I listen to a ton of music, obviously, when I work. So, yeah, killer. Thanks for the recommendation. And have fun on your trip. Vancouver is beautiful, from what I hear. Very beautiful. I think we're down to the last super chat here, but we only got about 10 minutes left. J-Mac for $20 says, Adam, take 2 Percocets and 2 shots of bourbon and call me in the morning. Trust me, I have a lab coat. God, if I had 2 Percocets, I'd take them right now. That is good. That is great advice. You don't need a lab coat to give that advice. That's the advice. That's the same advice I give people. Percocet. How do you feel about Percocet, Wojak? I'm just curious.
In general, I, especially online, don't want to give out medical advice. I do have opinions about things like that.
I'm not talking about medical. I'm just talking about for yourself.
For dealing with pain like that, I just take an ibuprofen, do stretching, mobility stuff.
Oh man.
So
I've been taking a lot of ibuprofen, but I'll talk to the doctor. I'll go to the doctor for my wife and for you guys, but I don't know. I know what they're gonna tell me ahead of time. I'm gonna write out what they're gonna say ahead of time, and then when they say it, I'm gonna go, see, told you so. It's just I went to the doctor on some other thing, and it's a scam.
What you may benefit from, and I've had this problem myself
right now. Go ahead.
I've had this problem myself too with trying to interact with doctors, I found it helps a lot. Write some questions down ahead of time of kind of getting answers to what you need to do. Like, how do I prevent this in future? What can I do? Like, kind of lead it with questions that answer your problem. I find that can help.
Lucifer the Doberman for another 2 Canadian. Northwest Passage by Unleash the Archers. Is that their album? I'll definitely check it out. All right, Wandering Wojak, we got 10 minutes left. Do you want to watch some more of the video? You want to talk? You want to give me your outlook on life?
In all of 10 minutes. I really wanted to get into the Thomas Sowell and hopping fields thing in science, but with only 10 minutes, I mean, that might accidentally end up on a bad note. Can I chill my stuff? Do you mind?
Yeah, go ahead. Chill away. What do you got going? I mean,
Well,
didn't you have a blog or something?
Yes, I am trying to use Substack. I probably will get back more into also making videos or some kind of podcast. Unfortunately, I still have not found the right people to do that with. Still looking. But my latest Substack article, well, not the latest one, the one preceding it, about crime and hopping buckets, is an illustration also using Thomas Sowell of why you want to look at different scientific fields, especially regarding social policy, because then you can find the thread that requires the least effort to pull at with the biggest effect. Because if everything is like bi-directional or downstream of something, it gets back to what I said earlier. You have much less of an effect trying to legislate people to marry. That doesn't quite work that well. Look at why they say they're not marrying. Economic, the reason for, in a lot of surveys, is they feel they don't have economic stability and they're delaying marriage. The Institute of Family Studies, surprisingly enough, also did an analysis of some surveys, and the answer they came to, along with some others, is the same thing. They're delaying marriage because they have to go to college, and then they have to go to college to university, and they still don't feel economically secure because the job situations, and it just goes on. So these are a lot of downstream things of really big problems. And when you're trying to construct policy, it's like, well, this can arise from hundreds to thousands of different things. So instead of those big problems, it's like, okay, let's keep hopping fields. Maybe one of them has a really simple thing we can do in design, like say ensuring that if you're in a city, you don't have a bunch of young idle men all crammed together who have no feeling that they have a choice, right? So if that is one major contributing factor, then you can have programs to target them, to give them training, give them jobs. That is something the government can do, right? As opposed to trying to legislate entire social reform. That's just one example of many. And it doesn't involve, trading studies back and forth hopelessly going, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, no, you're wrong. Just use them all to get different perspectives. Because you can't be a scientist of everything. Each scientist is only studying one particular thing. And if you rely just on that one thing, you can dig a hole and keep digging, looking for gold until you're all the way to China and be like, well, we just didn't dig hard enough. At some point, that creates its own problems. Much like, for example, the constant push to only care about education. And I think that's an example of digging yourself a hole all the way to China looking for gold, is the monofocus on education to improve your life.
Do you have an opinion on UBI? I'm curious.
I do. I think the best way to go about a system like that wouldn't be wealth redistribution directly per se. It would be more like having a national index fund. Like instead of each individual citizen needing to have the financial savvy and education to understand that an index fund is the safest really, well, not the safest, but a more reliable, high return investment. If you did that on a national scale and you could save up enough money, the interesting thing is, and this is just a crazy idea, I don't know if it's a good one, you could also start to shift away from using taxes and redistribution by using those taxes to invest in your own market. I think Norway does something like that with oil.
Are you following the? I gotta ask. Are you following the UBI or the MMT stuff?
I have a little bit. I haven't yet.
So you're not following it. Like if a lot of the things you're talking about obviously don't embody the MMT perspective. That's why I was asking. So I don't think you can do UBI without. Well, the reason why I got into MMT was because of the inflation argument against UBI. So that's when I started digging into like, what's the cause of inflation? What makes inflation work? Where do price levels come from? So
well, and that's why I was saying doing it that way, where it's an investment in capital markets, where the inflation that would occur would be a result of growth rather than debt borrowing, things like that.
But financial growth is not really growth. I mean, financial growth is like crypto is being traded every single day and gaining a ton of value, but is it really creating value in the real world? I would argue that it's not.
It depends, I think.
A lot of people are walking around feeling like they're hugely wealthy.
Yeah, I think it depends because most of the growth, if you want large growth, it seems to stem from bottom-up prosperity in some situations. Now,
real growth is like everyone has a house.
Right, there's more increasing demand. You have to get that from it. It's kind of like that children's song, There's a Hole in the Bucket, where you just loop in a circle and everything seems to be crazy bi-directional. This is why I think maybe to get out of that circle,
Hold
UBI...
on, let me read one super chat because the chat is super funny now. Dr. Thalen, why stop at UBI? Let's talk about MMT at the same time. I have a stream that I have to do that no one is going to want to be with me on. I have to listen to the MMT talk between Bob Murphy, who is a huge Austrian economist, and Roland Gray, who's a huge MMT commie, basically. I caught Roland Gray tweeting nasty things about Elon Musk, and I was just like, why do you got it? Why does everyone who is super competent in MMT have to be a total Elon Musk hating commie? Why is that a thing? It's so nerve-wracking, but I have to listen to that talk. That talk is super fascinating to me. I shared it with Sitch, and I'm surprised Sitch found it just as fascinating as I did. And let's face it, academic agent he's off the field. He's never gonna respond on anything interesting. So,
well, I would be interested in that. I am interested because, like I said, I do loosely follow these things. I do know what MMT is, and I do know some basic about the Austrian school. It is a little bit outside my usual wheelhouse, so I'm much less knowledgeable about it.
Read The Deficit Myth, Wojak. And
I am aware of
yeah,
that. I haven't read the book, but I have read some economic studies that I think pertain to what you're talking about.
Joseph Barbero for $5 says, have you considered the value religious argumentation might provide for communicating with the woke secular religion? I don't see how. I mean, they pretty much hate religion. They think religion is right wing. Am I wrong about that, Wojak? Do you agree or disagree?
I think my answer on that would be another 2-hour conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta go.
I'm gonna have to do a Tim Pool here and say it's complicated. But I genuinely mean that.
RBGH fam for $5 says A Train and his magical money tree. God, you guys are so funny. But I wonder. I feel like the fact that I say quite often that I'm not trying to change your mind helps when I want to talk about things like MMT or UBI. So many people, they want to have these conversations because they want to turn you into an advocate for MMT. I'm just curious. One of the reasons why I'm saying you should read that stuff, Wojak, is because you're a smart guy. And I mean, I keep looking for someone who actually has an argument against it that is compelling.
I can try to construct one. My thing with economic systems in general is the same thing with political ideologies, that sort of thing, where success or failure is going to, I think, necessarily be contextual. If you end up wielding a hammer and treat every problem like a nail, then you can, as I mentioned with the metaphor before, dig yourself a hole all the way down through to China and say, we just need to keep on digging like this in order to, I think looking at it as anything as a cure-all in all situations leads to that kind of danger, where then you might careen off a cliff unless you're skeptical about it.
Yeah.
That's just my general way I would treat these things. But I can certainly give it a shot.
Dooney says Curtis Yarvin was on Tucker Carlson today. He was on Tucker Carlson a while back. Was he on Tucker Carlson again? I really don't understand the appeal of Curtis Yarvin. I mean, he's obviously a really smart guy, but when he talks about social policy and economic policy, I just think, I mean, there's too many things missing out of his worldview for me to think he puts together a compelling story. But I got to go anyway. But thanks for joining in, Wojak. This was super cool. Thank you all for the super chats. You've been very, very generous with me today. So we'll see you all on the Sunday show. We don't know what we're doing on the Sunday show yet. I reached out to David Dole. He's the Rational National, and he's a super lefty with this horrible take on Kyle Rittenhouse. So maybe he'll respond. Maybe he'll come on. We might just respond to his video if he doesn't. But that's all I got for today. Wojak, send me your links and I'll put them in the description. So we'll have those down there soon enough. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Sure.